So before we do example number 4, sometimes it's easier just to use the trig identities of known derivatives. So if I know the derivative of arctangent and I have cotangent, I know there's some sort of relationship between the two, then I can take the derivative of tangent or sine or cosecant or whatever I already know. So here are some identities that we'll need, and again, this will be on the trig derivative quiz, and they're on the flashcards. So we have cosine, or arc cosine of x, and its cofunction identity, which is pi over 2 minus sine inverse of x, and then cotangent inverse of x is the same as pi over 2 minus arctan of x, and then we have cosecant inverse of x is equal to pi over 2 minus secant, or arcsecant of x. Now these are called the cofunctions. Identities. And then there's some other equivalent statements. So like secant inverse of x is equal to cosecant inverse of 1 over x. And then cotangent inverse of x is equal to pi over 2 minus tangent inverse of x. So that actually is the same. And then cosecant inverse of x is equal to sine of 1 over x. Okay? And these are just conversion identities. These are calculator based on the graphs and the domains and ranges and stuff. So sometimes we'll be, and you'll see in example number 4, we're going to be asked to take the derivative of arc cotangent of x, which I could do the long complicated thing, but I'm gonna plug it in because I already know what the derivative of tangent is. So I'm gonna convert that to tangent. These are going to be on the quiz. You need to memorize those identities. Okay. So let's write down what example number 4 actually is. So what we're asked to do is we're asked to find the tangent line of y equals cotangent inverse of x at x equals -1. Well, now to do that, I need the slope and I need a point. So let's do the point. The point is evaluated at -1, which is cotangent evaluated at 1, -1. Well, that's not easy to do because I don't have cotangent on my calculator. I can't grab my calculator and take the arc cotangent of -1. But I do have the arc tangent, or the inverse of tangent. So this is the same as pi over 2 minus tangent inverse of -1. Okay? Now, I don't need a calculator to do this either. Because, if you guys remember, in our xy plane, this is the opposite, this is theta, this is the adjacent, and this is the hypotenuse. And so tangent of theta is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. All right? Now, if I take the arctan of all this stuff, the arctan of the opposite over the adjacent is equal to your angle theta. That's not right. It's not time to go. So now what do? Well, I just need to think of the angle that gives me -1. Now, most of these problems are rigged up. We have two special right triangles. I have the 30, 60, and what was the other one?
90.
Yeah, but 45, 45, right? Now, this is 1, 2 root 3, if you use the Pythagorean identity, and this is 1, 1 square root 2. Okay? So now how do I get a right angle triangle? Well, what angle do you think we're working with? Where the opposite over the adjacent is equal to -1, if you had to choose which is which?
30.
Well, I've got 1, 2, I've got 1, so this is the opposite, right? If this is my angle theta, then this is the opposite, and this is the adjacent. There's no way I can make that equal -1. This is the opposite, and this is the adjacent. Is there a way to make that -1 if one of those is equal to -1?
You can't have a negative distance.
Well, you can't have a negative distance, but if you had to choose 30, 45, or 60, which angle do you think it would be closest to? It's the 45-degree angle. Now, 45 degrees is equal to pi over 4. However, there's only one way that I can make tangent negative. If I go down -1 and over 1. In other words, this point on the curve is going to be my sine, or I'm sorry, this is going to be cosine, comma, sine. So this point of 1, comma, -1 is the cosine sine values. So what angle am I moving? If I move in this direction, what angle is that? It's theta, but it's a negative theta. So basically, tangent inverse of -1 is minus pi over 4, because I have to sweep around pi over 4 in the negative direction. Remember, if we sweep around this way, that's the positive direction. Well, if we sweep around this way, that's the negative direction. Well, if I sweep around pi over 4, I'll get sine -1 over cosine 1, -1. You guys see that? Okay. That's the same as saying, like, you could do it on your calculators too. So what am I saying? Well, I'm saying that f of -1 is equal to pi over 2 minus pi minus pi over 4, which is really adding. And so that's 3 pi over 4. So I did all that work to find out that the point on the line exists, and that point is -1, comma 3 pi over 4. And I'm going to need that to write the tangent line, right? The next thing I need is the slope. How do I find the slope? I've got to take the derivative, dy dx, right? Now before I move forward, I know this is a lot to soak in. Does anyone have any questions about how I got the things that I have written on the paper? Because there's a lot of stuff there.
No.
No? If you, yes?
So you got the 3 pi over 4. You could also plug it in your calculator and get the same thing.
You could. Enter in -1, hit enter. It's going to spit that out, which, by the way, is 3 times pi divided by 4.
It was wrong. That's
that equals pi.
Oh, it's not 3 pi over 4. That's the final answer. It's pi. I was doing the right thing.
Yeah, pi over 4.
It's pi over 4.
Oh, so that's
Yes, quickly. So pi over 4 is what we got, and then when we added half a pi to it, then we got the 3 pi over 4. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions, guys? All right. So that's where that comes from. All right. So I'll do a real quick summary. To find the tangent line of y equals arc cotangent of x at x equals -1, the first thing I need is the point. To find the point, I evaluate the function arc cotangent at -1. If I use the cofunction identity, I need pi over 2 minus arc tangent of -1. I do all this trigonometric stuff to off the top of my head to figure out that the arc tangent of -1 is actually the angle negative pi over 4. So then that means that I have pi over 2 minus pi over 4, or pi over 2 plus pi over 4, which becomes 3 pi over 4. So there exists on the function y equals arc cotangent of x, the point -1, comma 3 pi over 4. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, with that being said, the next thing I need to do is I need to find the slope. So the slope is equal to dy dx, right? And we said that y was equal to cotangent inverse of x, which we said was also equal to pi over 4, or pi over 2, minus the arc tangent, or the inverse of tangent of x. So what we need to do is we need to find dy dx of this. So the derivative of tangent, so to find dy dx, what's the derivative of pi over 2? 0.
0.
The negative sign stays in the front. What's the derivative of tangent? You guys have memorized that, haven't you?
X.
It's 1 over 1 plus x squared. And that's it. So dy dx is negative 1 over 1 plus x squared. So f prime of -1 is equal to negative 1 over 1 plus -1 squared. Can somebody tell me what I just did and why I did it?
You squared the -1 and added it with the 1.
Just took his derivative of one derivative of derivative.
What's the big picture? What am I trying to do?
Find the slope.
I'm trying to find the slope. Why do I need the slope? What did the original question?
Find
I gotta write the equation of the tangent line. So to write the equation of the tangent line, I need two things. What do I need? Point and slope. We found the point, and now what's the relationship between the slope and the derivative? They're the same thing, right? Two different words mean the same thing. So the slope is the derivative evaluated at that point x. So now to write the tangent line, so we did all that work to find the tangent line of the function. Oh no, it was cotangent, wasn't it? Cotangent inverse of x at x equals -1. Well, what we found is that the slope at x equals -1 is -1/2, and that occurs on the point -1 comma, what was the point?
3 pi over 4.
3 pi over 4. And we've done a lot of math just to get to that. So now how do I write the equation of the tangent line? Y is equal to m times x minus x sub 1 plus y sub 1. Or y is equal to -1/2 times the quantity x minus minus 1 plus 3 pi over 4. And you could probably figure out the rest from there, right? From there, it would be y equals negative 1/2 x minus 1/2 plus 3 pi over 4. And this you could kind of leave alone if you wanted to, however you want to address that. You can find a common denominator, put them together, whatever you want to do. Does anybody have